Now, why did we start with that 2-point perspective buildings, essentially? Why did we start with that?
To get a great view and a perspective.
Partly. Go ahead.
Is it because they're basic shapes, so
Yes.
they're easier to place
Yes.
and stuff?
What we're trying to start doing here, and it's not. The idea is when you're starting to use those basic forms in like basic drawing and things like that, then we're starting to put them into use in that way. Does that make sense? I think I'm cutting out. Am I cutting out or no?
No, we can hear you, Mike.
No,
You're fine.
Yeah, okay. So what we're going to start talking about, we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about texture mapping to a certain extent, organic form, probably some tone paper stuff, and probably some other things I'm forgetting. Let me look at my notes. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so one of the things that we usually start off with this kind of thing, and it's pretty common, is so we're going to start with insects. Okay, so let's pull this up real quick.
Mr. Sheehan.
Yeah.
Do we have to take notes for this?
No, I'll put up the Zoom meeting.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about it. And the only reason I haven't put up other Zoom meetings, like if I miss one here and there, it's just because of, you know, if it's a crit or something, I don't usually put them up. I put them up if there's a demo and all that kind of stuff in it. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so why are we starting with we're going to talk a little bit about insects, fish, and a little bit of some other things too. But why do we start like with insects?
Because they're like very structured. They have little like basic.
Yeah, so they basically look like mechanical.
Segmented bodies.
Yeah, and they look like you can clearly see the shapes, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to try something here. Well, let's try this.
Are you going to share a screen?
Am I not sharing my screen? I thought I was.
No.
That's your fault, Elan. All right, now you're seeing my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. So all these guys, what I think everybody likes about insects and stuff, you can clearly see the shapes. They feel sort of geometric and mechanical, but they're organic and they have anatomy. So it's sort of a nice bridge into sort of people and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you can see this one down here. This guy, oops. This person is a very simple form, right? It's basically this. You got to give my hands a minute to warm up because they're not warmed up yet. You know, and then that. Okay, so it's a really simple, basic form, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, this guy, and none of these really, they're all sort of similar segmented shapes, okay? But a lot of times the way people like to look at these initially, and you got to be careful with this, you guys, because like you're looking at this initially, and eventually you got to, loosen these things up. You're building the form in a sort of geometric way, but eventually you got to loosen these things up so they don't feel so geometric, okay? So the basic thing of this is I could look at this as sort of that. That's a bad box, but it's not too bad. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'm going to go, let's just do this. Let's go, I'm going to put an X right here, because remember we talked about the X and getting our centers point. Do you guys remember that?
Mhm.
Elin, you're always so quiet. Okay, and then I'm going to pull this straight back off the body. And then I'm going to go, okay, let's say that this, now I'm going to change up this main form right here, or the head form, if that's what that is. I'm going to cut it right there. And then this kind of looks like it comes down like that. And I'm just going to start to create the main forms here. I'm going to actually put an X here too, just for the heck of it. And then I'm going to pull this line here and down. I'm just giving myself some landmarks. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I know that that's a center line. So now I'm going to, just as a landmark, I'm going to put this little mark in there as a landmark. Now you can get really crazy into this where you're doing this all from, so see where this little bump is right there? You guys?
Mm-hmm.
So it drops down here and it bumps here, like about there, I think, okay? And then it's gonna come straight back, and I'm using this, and then if I go pull this over, pull a line over this body form, then I know that the other one lands about there. Okay, so I put it a little lower, but that's okay. And then this is gonna come back, and then up and around. Okay, so what it's doing is this give me a little bit of a form to build my bug inside of. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm doing this real rough. Then this actually should be about there. And I would never go this hard on the lines yet. I'm just doing it, you know, just to show how I'm building it. And actually this does that. And I'm always thinking about whatever form I have. Let's just make a simple bean form, sort of like that. You know, that there's volume going through this like that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, because this surface contour line is something we're going to be talking about today, okay? And then when I go into the legs, I'm initially going to think of them just as being tubes, okay? And where's the basic, where they land? You know, and again, I could climb this up and over this body and drop it down and go, oh, the other leg's going to be over here. I'm not going to see it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go. Now, eventually, so when you're building this kind of thing, let's look at this other one. When you're building this kind of thing, I'm going to get it to, you know, we're sort of blocked in a little bit, okay? And here's another couple of things I want you guys to start doing. So you're going to have a lot of stuff that I'm going to want you to do this week, okay? One of them is to start looking at these shapes, how you're going to handle, let's say, and there's a bunch of shapes down here I'm missing, but I'm not going to put all of them in. Let's say that I'm going to say this is a dark value down here. That we're going to start thinking about how we're wrapping or how we're following the form with our hatch lines, okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so like down here, this stuff under his main shell or whatever, I'm just going to have it follow it a little bit. Why am I doing that?
Is
For
it to
volume?
separate it?
Yeah, it's to separate it and a little bit of what somebody else just said, volume a little bit. I want to show that what that form's doing, and if I'm using my hatch lines to sort of describe the form, it's telling the viewer, you know, that that's tucking under or it's a curve or it's a straight or whatever it is. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Let's just knock in his eye here. Okay, and then there's actually a leg here too. And then I'm also looking, like we've talked about probably, like this little knuckle right there. I'm looking at where it falls inside of that body shape. So it falls like right there, okay? My proportion's a little off on this one because it's a quick one, but that's fine. And then I'm going to put in another, whatever you call it, tube. Now I could look at these initially as just this. And just build it literally as a couple of tubes. If that helps you to see it for this leg here. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then, so there's a couple things I want you to do. I want you to think about where, when this has this internal form, where, and this surface line right here, this contour line, you got to know where it is in perspective. So if I'm looking at it from, let's say, this viewpoint, a tube, this volume in here, I'm looking sort of up at it. I'm looking at it this way. Does that make sense? So these are going to get emphasized this way. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then if I was looking at it from a down view, the part of this I'm going to emphasize is this way. Okay, the reason that matters, and we've talked about this a little bit, is when we start wrapping texture and form around these things, we got to know which way they're following the form, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. This guy actually has a lot more here like that. Okay, another thing now, so we're going to start pulling everything together here we've been talking about in one thing, okay? I also want you to start going in here and going, okay, my light source is here. I'm going to start separating all this stuff based on where that light source is, okay? So just like we talked about, that this is away from the form. Another thing I started doing here was I started mapping this little shadow, and I'm just eyeballing this. I'm not, we can get super perspective-y about it, but I'd rather that you guys do that in a perspective class, of, you know, plotting shadows and all that kind of stuff, okay? But if you notice the way I did the shadow hatching, it's following the ground plane. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
So it's one way you could do it. You could also just do it as a big, you know, dark mass. You could do it where it's a shadow value that's on the ground like this, and it's still describing the shadow form, but maybe it's sort of like more of a designy thing. And I'll show you a couple examples of this today. And I could move this around and just make it a little bit of a graphic idea, because then we could use that as a graphic element in our drawing as a sort of a presentation tool, okay? And we got this. And then look, this other one is going to go right over his head here and fall into there somewhere, okay? So I'm always, when I have a form, whether it's round, let's say that's a rounder form of the front of the head, and here's the eyes, I'm always going to follow that over and line things up by following it around the form, by putting contour lines, surface lines. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Now, if you notice, this guy, he has really generalized texture here. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So I can start to sort of just indicate a little bit of that. Go ahead. Somebody going to say something? And I want questions here. If I'm doing anything that's not making sense, make sure you're asking me questions, yeah?
Oh yeah. I have one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will we have to be passing in a bug drawing like that one to you this week?
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to do a couple things. I'm going to give you a couple of different subject matter, and we're going to go over them right now.
Okay.
Insects are going to be one. Fish will be another one. I'm going to show you a little bit of a surface thing. And we're going to do that as an exercise. So I'm actually going to want 3 or 4 pages of different things this week. Does that make sense? So one is going to be, and I'll put it up on Canvas. One is going to be insects, fish, forms with texture. And then I might add one more in there, but it'll make sense as I go through this stuff, okay? And then I'm probably either today or Thursday, I'm gonna show you some tone paper stuff. I might show you today if I have a chance, if I get through all this, okay? Okay, does all this make sense? Like this part about how this is wrapping across the form is really important now, okay? Because we're gonna take like what we did with our texture brushes and our directional brushes, and we're going to do it by hand so we understand it better. And then I'm going to show you how we can start using the things combined, our texture brushes, our directional brushes, and that kind of stuff combined with this thinking. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
And the reason you need to know both, okay? You can't just go in and have something in Photoshop do it for you, okay? Sorry, my phone rang. Let's get rid of this guy. Now, let's get rid of this. Let's look at this guy. Now, you can look at something like, let's see if I can find this one. Like you might want to start with something like that because it's a really simple form, correct? Elan?
Yes.
Am I cutting out again? Yes, no?
Can you hear us, Mike?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's just that it's when I'm asking questions, it seems like there's a lag. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, but do you guys see why
I
this
see.
one?
But we can hear you fine.
Okay, you can see why this, like a ladybug, would be a very simple one to start with, correct?
Yeah.
And there's a
Yeah.
couple ways. Go ahead. Go ahead. Did you say something? I mean, I could start it this way. It's just three simple circles, correct?
Yes.
And then just bring this down and start carving out of it. And I might go over a little bit more of the perspective-y way of doing this later. But right now I want you to start seeing the forms, okay? It gets a little dangerous when you start building everything out of geometric shapes, okay? Because the drawing can get really stiff and it can get away from you, okay? But there's a place for that, okay? Now I'm gonna put one more here. Bring these forms up. Okay, and another thing, you guys, you got to remember, again, here's our surface form. So make sure, now this isn't a perfect ellipse there, so it's sort of making its own mark in its own way. But you want to make sure the things are still, they're following the form. Like this one is definitely getting squished a little bit because it's going, why? Because it's going around the back of the form, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Down here, it'll get squished a little this way because it's going down the form the other way, okay? So let's put that. You can see
Would you
where
draw in that highlight?
do what?
Would you draw in that highlight?
This one here?
Yeah.
Well, what I might do then, which I was going to show you in a little bit, but let's just look at it. Because the way I want to do it, if I had tone in it, yes. Right now I don't have tone, right?
Yeah.
So let's look at this. If I can find it. I could go in here. By the way, when you drag something into Photoshop, You guys. You see that little icon right there on my thumbnail? Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that means it turned it into a smart object. You got to be careful with that. It'll not let you do certain things, so you'll go to try and do something. You'll go, well, why won't it work? It's because it's a smart object. So I have to right-click the bar here, not the thumbnail, not the word, the bar, and it'll give me rasterized layer, and now it's a regular layer, okay? And now I've got this guy. So basically tone paper, we all know what that is, correct?
Yep.
So I could, to your question, I could come in here. Let's see how light we can go. And I've got this on a different layer just because, you know, it makes it where I can obviously change it. And I would probably just give it a little highlight, just like I would on any tone paper, okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So let's go in here and do this. I'm gonna follow this form, oops. I'm gonna block out a little bit of this. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but that's all right. All this. And I'm just gonna go back and forth over my drawing. So let's go back to some white here. And I don't want 100% white to begin with, you guys. Here's the thing. You're gonna go, I like to go, and I do this on paper or I do this way. I'm gonna knock down my opacity and I can have a highlight. That's my basic highlight. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna go 100% and add in my specularity in there, okay? What's specularity? Anybody know?
Is it the brightest spot of the highlight?
Yeah, more or less, yes. And then, but it
The
basically,
Brightest spot of the highlight? Okay.
what it basically is like when you're driving in a car and you have a car in front of you on a sunny day and you get that blinding light off the chrome bumper or off the window or something, that's basically specularity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So like I could put a little here probably because the light source is coming from here. Hang on. I had this on the wrong layer, but that's okay. You know, I could probably put a little here because that's the leading edge of the highlight. That's a little strong, but it's okay. Now I can go back. So when I'm doing this, what I'm basically doing, I do the same thing when I do it on regular real tone paper. I have a Prismacolor pencil and I put down my basic highlight, and then I go in with either gouache or a white paint marker and I hit my specular highlights. Now, the reason there's a bunch of reasons why it's important, but one of the reasons it's important is you've got to tell the viewer the level of hardness or reflectivity or whatever you want to call it, hard surface stuff, by using that. So what people do sometimes is they'll put specular highlights on like clothing. And like you can see right here, I'm getting a lot of light right here. I'm not going to get any specularity on my clothing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if I'm drawing like an insect or something, yeah, I'm going to get some specularity because it's a very hard surface and it's pretty reflective. In some cases, like that first beetle we were looking at, it was even iridescent, okay? And again, I'm thinking about, I'm going to pick up this color right here, how this stuff wraps around the form. Even if it's an organic shape, when it's going around, this kind of form, let's say, as it gets down here, these ellipses are going to squash a little bit as it goes around the form, or even back here. Does that make sense? And then here they're going to lay over the surface more like that. And then when they come over here, that ellipse is going to open up a little bit. Does that all make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so let's put a little bit here. Because if I don't get this done right, if I don't come in here and put my surface forms on here correctly, my patterns and all that kind of thing, nothing's ever going to look believable or correct. And if you're doing something like a character design or maybe a believable zoological animal design, the patterns you put across those animals, I think we've talked about this a little bit, like a zebra or something like that, they all have key points about the way that wraps around the form, the way it transitions from the torso to the legs and that kind of thing. We talked about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's sort of the same thing. This leg's a little too fat. Their legs always are positioned in these really weird ways. And then this one, if I look at this, I'm going to be able to see probably that much of the leg on that side probably. Why? Because I'm just kind of going, well, if it wraps up and around this form, that little elbow is going to be about down there. And again, there's ways we can figure this out exactly with perspective, but I want you to start just using it as a logical tool. Climb over that shape, follow that shape, drop down, and then you'll kind of get an idea of where the point of contact is on the next side, and you can just kind of show it from there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the next thing I would do here, oh, this shape's actually interesting. I didn't see that. So I'd go, my light source is here. Oops. And I'm going to start punching these lines. And I want nice, clean punched lines on this. And then one thing that I do a lot when I'm doing this, when I'm putting my lines in, most of my lines that I put in initially are really loose and rough, correct?
Yes.
So what I'm doing when I have a loose line like this, let's say this white one right here that I put here, I'm coming back in and I'm sweeping this. Look at my hands. I'm sweeping this right across the form, right across it, okay? What does that do? It cleans everything up, correct?
Yep.
So when I'm doing something, this is on paper, but it's relevant. Let me see if I can find it. Sorry, hang on. Like this kind of thing, this plane down here, right? It's thrown down the same way. Now it's thrown down in ink, obviously, but these same things, okay? These are all done at March Field, all right? But it's the same thing. I throw it down fairly loose, and then I come back in with my pin, and I sweep everything, and I clean up my line work. Does that make sense? Taylor Sevilla. Okay, so you can see, look. If I come in here and I do that, that one's pretty clean. But if I want to come, like, let's say I want to put a highlight on it, then maybe I'll switch over and go and just clean this stuff up. Nice swept line, right? Same thing here. Maybe there's a little line there. And I'm always thinking about this. I'm like, you know, how can I clean up my lines, you know? And then here, let's do this. Let's just give it a kind of a, I'll just figure out the shadow a little bit. I could go just as a, whatever you call it. I could make this little ground shadow a little bit more interesting if I sort of do this all undulating pattern thing. And I'll show you some really cool examples of this in a minute. Okay, and I could start to build the pattern that way. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so, but we're understanding how to break up these simple shapes. Like, let's try this one, where I could start to add, break up this shape, and I could start to make my own bug if I wanted to. This would bulge a little bit here, probably. You know, this would probably lift a little bit. Probably has some antenna. So does this guy. And you're going to find out this idea of doing this, like this would probably have a little core shadow on it. So let's do that. So let's give this, so let's look at this guy and go, maybe this guy has a little core shadow on him. Let's put this guy in a different layer. Let's get rid of this. And let's see if we can get rid of this. Yeah. Okay.
Mike, I have a question.
Sure.
Do you want the reference pictures of the bugs on the pages that we do
Yeah.
for homework?
I think that'd be helpful.
Okay.
Hang on.
We could pick the bugs we want to use, right?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Will this project be due, the little bugs, the homework, and the fish will be due this Thursday or on Tuesday?
I think I want to look at them Thursday. And then I want to look at them Thursday because I'm just asking for sketches. I'm asking, and I need a starting point to start with you guys with this stuff. And then I can sort of move forward once I have something of yours to move over and to find the problems that you guys are having, if you're having any.
Did you mean this Thursday or next Thursday?
This Thursday.
Okay.
And then what else do I have? Wait, I think I have something else.
Yes.
Okay. So let's get rid of this. Hang on. I'm just going to erase this out for now. And this.
Can we do them all on toned?
Yeah.
if we want? Okay, cool.
Okay, so now we got this and this happening. And then, so maybe I can put a little bit of texture on them. I'm going to give them a leg, a real insecty leg. They usually have these little things that do that. Then I'm going to jump this over to here and go the elbow or the shoulder's actually there. It's going to come out a little bit here, and I'm probably going to get that. I'm making sort of a prawn in a weird way. Okay, and then I'm going to go, let's see if I can do it with an interesting brush. I don't know if I can. I'm going to give you guys my brushes. I'm trying to organize them a little bit. Because right now, up until now, they've been sort of a I don't know, just sort of a all put together, and I'm going to try and organize them a little bit. Let's get rid of that.
Mike?
Yeah.
Will your brushes include the pencil brush you usually draw or sketch in?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
I sometimes now I put that up by itself, and I think I just call it drawing brush or something.
Mm-hmm.
I like that one a lot. I'm trying to find a decent which I can't find. I don't know where all my these are all group brushes. I'm trying to find the just the original ones. Let's see. Yeah, screw it. Let's just do it this way. Let's just put another layer on here. And I'm just going to come in here with my regular brush. That's weird. Hang on. Oh, that's why. Okay, so now I'm going to give it a little kind of a core shadow here. I was looking for a charcoal thing, but couldn't find it. Okay, so I'm just going to smudge it a little bit. Reinforce this. And then I can go, all right, where's my highlights going to be? I'm going to get some here. Okay, hang on. Oh, that's why. I'm on multiply. That's what's screwing me up. I'm going to get one here. Probably one right above that, probably. And here's the thing. You don't want to go overboard with this, and you want to describe your forms. Like if there's a segmented section here, that might get a little highlight on the other end of this of the crack in the body, the little segmented part. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now if we take this on to, that all makes sense, correct?
Yes.
Let's go. Now let's take it to this guy. Okay, so you can see how I arrived at this one, right?
Yeah.
Now let's start talking a little bit. So, okay, so here's another thing I'm going to want you to do. I'm going to want you to come in. Hang on, I got my notes here. Come on. Okay, so see, these are some that are built very geometrically. You see that? Which is a good exercise, okay? I don't really want to go there, really. I think it's a good exercise, but where I want you to go more is building it, you know, to that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay. Now,
there we
let's
go.
talk about this. Go ahead.
Random yes. Oh,
So let's go here. Let me find it. Now, some people like to do this, and I don't think it's a bad idea. Let me find it. They like to make sort of texture ideas, okay? Just flat texture ideas, okay? This isn't a great one. It's okay. It's not a great one. And these are sort of dissipating and all that kind of thing, scales, stuff like that, okay? Well, what I want to start talking about here is one of the things I'm going to want you to start doing is just take some I want another sheet of, I want bugs, and I want a sheet of organic forms, thinking about and mapping this surface form. I like to draw through them. Then you're going to have sort of that going on, and that going on, and that going on. Okay, because now what I want you to do is pick a texture and go, okay, I'm going to wrap this texture around this form based on what's happening with that surface form. Yeah?
What do you mean by like organic form?
Organic form means it's not this.
Okay, cool. Gotcha.
It could be this. And then you got to figure out, like this one's going to be facing downward. This one's going to be facing upward. And then these are also going to go around this way. And then it's going to start going back this way again. So my texture would wrap around this form, and then back up to this form, and then back up to this form. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I'm also thinking about what's going on this surface form. Okay?
Okay.
And I haven't been able to find any really good examples of it. It's a typical exercise, but it's a really good one. Usually I can find a lot of these, but it could be and you want to give yourselves a lot of different sort of ideas. Another thing we did one time that was kind of interesting, I'm not going to do it right now, but we had to take sort of household items. So it might be this, and you'd have to map organic texture around it. Okay. Now this doesn't have to be fur, whatever. It could be a pattern, circles. But remember, as it goes down under here, it's going to squash and all that kind of thing. So I'm trying to get you to understand. It's just like a 3D model when you texture map it, basically. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If we don't do this, then I can't start talking about creature invention, animals. You got to understand how fur and just things wrap around forms. Does that make sense? Or tree. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that make sense, what I just did?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And I'll try and find some good examples of it. Because there's a lot. The reason I don't do a whole sheet of these, I can usually find 1,000,000 pages of it. Okay, so now this idea of wrapping around this stuff. So if you look at this tarantula, look at, he's pretty furry. And then look at his fur on his legs. It's following the form, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm looking at something like this, then I go, or when I go to the zoo, it's a good example, the zoo. I think we talked about this. I go to the zoo, then I'm going in there and I'm going, how does that fur wrap around? You know, how does the pattern wrap around the body? How does it transition to different parts? How does it compress when it's going around the torso and underneath or around the back? And it's just kind of how I'm thinking of it, okay? I don't sit around and always go, overanalyze it. But if I have this in the back of my head, I know how it works, okay? So when it comes to this, then I'm kind of going, okay, you guys understand how I got to this point, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I'm going to go, let's go here. Let's get rid of this. Oops. So I've got this. And I've got this, and I've got my little surface forms around it. And now I'm going to go, okay, there's a segmented thing going on here where this is a little bigger than a segmented thing. Yeah, and then pinched and then segmented. And then sort of bulgy and segmented. Okay. And then again, go ahead.
Mike?
Yeah.
For animal or insects that have hair like the tarantula, do you want us to draw out the individual hairs, or can we use the fur brushes that we currently
No, I don't want you to use any trick brushes for this one. We'll talk about that later.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going, how does this now, this ellipse goes this way because I'm looking down at it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with this one, and then so on and so forth. Okay, so then I come in here, and if you notice the segment going up into the next segment is pinched. It's pinched at the top, and then it flares at the bottom, okay? But now I'm going, okay, the neck, you know, and then I would go through this whole thing, okay? Like this guy's just going down that way. This actually flattens off a little right here, looks like. And then we get some other things going on here that I'm not going to worry about. Okay. Now, here, it's going up and over and like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so now, I'd go out and I'd kind of figure it all out and everything. But now I'm going, okay, this, his fur, whatever that's called, is sort of wrapping around now and coming over the next layer. And that one's pretty simple. This one is following the form down this way. But I'm definitely following the form. You can see that. Look at this right here. It's totally following the form. Do you see that on his head or whatever that is?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm going to go, there's a little break right here. So I'm going to go in with a little harder line. And then let's jump over to here. So now I've got this and I go, okay, good. I can have some of this break the form because his fur kind of breaks the form a little bit. And now I'm just going to have them follow this surface form and around this way now too. So it's sort of following that and this, and I can kind of break it here and there, and it'll start to make them feel a little bit fuzzy. If I break those edges here and there, I don't have to do as much information on the interior. Does that make sense? Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
It breaks the silhouette and yeah.
It gives the viewer some information, right, where they need it. And then I can do the same thing we sort of talked about before, where I could dense up this fur down here and sort of use it as telling the viewer something about the light. If I gather up more fur as it goes out of the light, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, does all that make sense?
Yes.
Now, if we take this to a more complex thing, sorry. Hopefully I have on here. I think, oh, actually I have it over here. Hang on.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yep.
I have a question about the assignment.
Sure.
Are we supposed to be doing fish, insects, and form with textures all in the same assignment?
Yes. Make sense?
You didn't answer my question. I was saying, is drawing insects, fish, and form with textures all part of the same assignment or different assignments?
And I said yes. They're all part of one of the assignment.
They're all part of the same assignment?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
All right, you guys. So look, we got an alligator here, okay? Complex animal. And proportion's a little funky, but it's fine. He's got a little more neck here. If I break this down, let's get rid of this guy. Because the point here isn't just to always do, it's to start understanding this in relation to more complex things, okay? So what do we have here? Look, we got this big round form right there. You guys see that? And then we've got this form coming out of it, which is really another round form. He's got all this girth around his head. And then I've got basically a triangle, okay? And then I've got a tube, little feet. He's got some weight right there. Then we've got another tube here. And then the tail. Okay, does that make sense? Oops.
Yes.
Okay, and we end up with something like this guy up here. Now, this is an animal, and most, I'm sorry, most animals are going to have, you know, some version of repeating something. Humans have it, almost everything has it. So if I take this now and I go, okay, the surface form kind of goes around like that a little bit. Then obviously it's going to go like that a little bit. I want to make sure that sometimes I really like to put that ellipse in there, so I really think about it wrapping. I don't know why I have a cough all of a sudden. Taylor said, yeah.
My bad.
Thank you. All right, so then I have these little protrusions here, correct?
Correct.
So then I know, following this form, they're over here. And I know where they all line up, because these need to line up because they are lined up. And then what's nice is this will go down the center line of the tail and switch directions. What does that do? Look, now we've got this overlap with the tail here. And look at this photo even gives you this nice, hang on, put this up on top. Gives you this nice dark right there to separate the front from the back, or the, you know, the flip part from the other part. So I can come in here now. Let's do this real quick. I could follow a little bit of that form with that. Okay. And then I'm going to go, okay, there's another level of these little protrusions. You know, and then there's sort of this kind of interesting transition right there. And then you can't really see it on here, but they have like a weird, like on their legs, as I remember it. Here's his leg. There's his claw. They have this sort of like, so here's the surface form. It's almost like this little square pattern that goes over it. So I want to make sure that, again, you know, I don't want to show all that. It's kind of like shingles. I want to show a little and let it fade off. Then there's another one right down the center line. You know, and then I'm just lining them up with my, in this case, I can eyeball them. But I'm looking at them going over that form and then up this form. Then I can start building my alligator. I think his nostrils are here, I think. You know, and then there's a little front plane change right there. Then I can start coming in here and putting my teeth in there and all that kind of stuff. Okay, does all that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because eventually, you know, you're going to go, let's turn this off. You know, if I go to the zoo or if I pull a picture up, you know, as a giraffe is something like, then they got a square that goes right here. Actually, I think it tilts like that. You know, and then I'm going to do the same thing with this pattern. I'm going to make sure it wraps around. It's going to compress as it goes into here. Get more towards the viewer here. You know, and then I'd start building my actual giraffe. My goofy looking giraffe. Whatever it is, right? But I want to make sure that that pattern, that giraffe pattern, or that whatever that's called, is wrapping around this form the way it should. And when it gets under here, it's going to compress a little bit. get fully towards the viewer here. And then start squashing and all those kind of things as it goes around the form, correct? What are you snickering about, Taylor?
My dog.
Your dog has fur, therefore you should be drawing your dog.
I actually did for Saturday class, so yeah.
Anything with anatomies on the table.
Nice.
Okay, so there's my, hang on. There's, now, when it comes to fish, again, I'm picking these things because they're fairly simple shapes to see. Birds can be good too, actually, okay? As a bird, the thing I like about them is you basically have this shape, whatever their beak shape is. You have their neck. Then you just have some sort of simple big body mass. Then whatever kind of legs they have. You know, and then you can put in their wings and finesse things and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So birds are actually not a bad thing either. You know, the smaller ones like sparrows are just little shapes basically like that. And then what's this? It can be an upturned triangle. Legs come back that way. You know, wings. Or maybe this comes down this way sometimes. So on and so forth, right? So they're very simple. One of the things when we go to the Natural History Museum, usually on Saturdays, is I have everybody go to the Hall of Birds right away. Because I'm like, you can see all the shapes very clearly there. They start with dinosaurs and all that kind of stuff and dinosaur skeletons. They might get a little overwhelmed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. Okay, so let's look at this fish. Okay, so here's another thing. Let's look at, oops. Let's look at this guy. It's sort of the same thing as the insects. I can see these shapes very clearly. Then what have I got here? I got a big triangle, correct? On the tail?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a little further back. Now, the reason, again, I like fish, and everybody likes fish for this kind of thing, is the silhouette is so easy to see, okay? So then I'm kind of going, okay, there's a little shape sort of here. Then that mouth coming out. A little more of a bulge here. Shape. Shape. And then this kind of interesting little fin right here. How nature like engineers all that for maximum efficiency. Yeah? Because that's what's going on there. Okay, so now I have my basic fish shape. I'm going to have them looking at you more. This actually has got more of an angle. But you can see how once I get this very simple basic silhouette in here, that this becomes pretty easy for me to just go in now and start adding. And then look, we still have, even though it's sort of a front view or a side view, I can still think about how that form is wrapping. So when I put this pattern on here, it's really following that form. And then I can go in here and go, okay, there's a little bit of a eye sockety thing going on there. There's a little thing here. He's got that little fish lip thing right there. And then look there's a little bit of texture up here. I'm not going to show all of it. I'm just going to show some of it. Then there's actually a ridge in between all these like separations.
You okay?
What?
You okay? You're coughing a lot.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's probably, I don't know what it is. I think I feel like I got a dry throat. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm looking for something.
Elan fault.
Okay. So let's go. Oh, by the way, is anybody using Procreate as opposed to Photoshop? If they don't have it? Okay. Because you can use Photoshop brushes in Procreate now. Okay. Okay, so let's go up here. Now, I got this loose thing, so now I'm going to come in and do exactly what we just said a few minutes ago. I'm going to go, my light's up here, let's say. And I'm just going to come in here and kind of clean up my lines. Start adding things in. Maybe get a little highlight on there, a little highlight on the eye. You know, and I just start building my my real simple idea. Does that make sense? I want them fairly cleaned up. I don't want them all like this kind of cleaned up. Just kind of go over and sweep your line and clean them up really nice. And I'll try and find, and I'll show you actually some examples in a minute. Okay, does that make sense why we're looking at a fish shape? Elan?
Yes.
Crazy Elan?
Guess that's me.
At least you own it. We'll do that. Okay, so let's try something else here. Let's go. By the way, you don't have to use this. You could use, okay, so what this is, and I can put this online too if you want. This is just, you can make this actually in Ills or Photoshop, but a lot of times I just use it's a high-res scan of tone paper, okay? If you want it, I'll put it up online. Or what you'll see a lot is just this, where they'll just go in. You know, I go, okay, I need a little darker. So go to my levels and just go, I can go about wherever. Now I could just make that a warm value and use that, it's fine. Like, let me see some, I'll find some, hang on. Oops, what happened? My Google just went to its own weird thing. Okay, here we go. You know, so here's an example. Of this done on gray value. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
So you're establishing a mid-tone. The only thing you're doing is adding darks and lights. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
The mid-tone does all the rest of the work for you. I tend to like a warmer one, but who cares, right? It doesn't matter. It's whatever you like. It also might matter what I'm drawing a little bit. Okay, so let's look at a little more complex form in relation to, like, just like the alligator was a little more complex form. Damn it. So now we got an eel, correct? Yeah?
Yes.
So how are we going to handle this guy?
Like a basic like ribbon shape and then draw through the form.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go, oops. What happened? Hang on. Why my computer's getting all screwy today? Hang on. I just lost my eel. Okay, and there's a couple of things that are freebies in this. So we're gonna, I'm not gonna, I'm just gonna make a, so then we've got this sort of idea going on. I'm just gonna have it turn this way. So now if I add a little form to that, what's gonna happen is I'm gonna lose this sort of edge here. And it's gonna sort of flow like that over. So you're not gonna have, you're gonna have more of that as opposed to this sort of an edge. Hang on, I gotta recalibrate. Because we have to recalibrate every 10 minutes. Come on. Oh, there it is. Okay. This is going to get a little more rounded. And then what's really cool here is if you get like this kind of thing, this dorsal fin on there, if that's what that's called, it's going to change directions for you and then run down the center line of this and really tell the viewer what's going on that top surface, because it's going to wrap over like that. Does that make sense? So that center line is going to really help you. That fin going, or that, yeah, that fin going across the top, okay? And then I'm just going to round all this out, make sure this is going over like that. And, you know, make sure that's doing that and that's doing that more. And I'm just going to get a rounder form that way. I squished him up a little more to make my point, okay? And then again, I wrap my form over this, and I can start to create, you know, the head shape and all that. Then I can wrap it across this. And these get like really cool highlights. I always like the highlights on these kind of things. A little specularity. See those little highlights right there? Those are nice, like those little dots, right? Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
So we're always just starting, even on these more complex forms, we're just starting with basic, simple shapes, correct? Only now they're organic shapes, okay? Then when we really start talking about people more, they'll go back to almost geometric shapes again. What else do I have here? Okay, hang on.
For our light source, do you want us to mark on the page like where our light source is coming from?
I think ideally you should be able to speak to it, but I should be able to tell without you showing it to me.
Okay, cool.
I mean, that's kind of the goal. And then let's look at one more. This one's a fun one. Now he is turned a little bit. This guy, you know, I kind of see it like, so by the way, if you see my two swatches right there, you guys? Instead of going over here to swap it here, I can just hit X and it'll swap it, okay? So I think about this little opening of the mouth here. Then we got a shape that kind of comes up and then down. Let's move it over. You know, and then this big curve. You see that big curve right there? Yeah?
Yeah.
I want to go, where's the eye? It's about there. Look at the fin, breaks the silhouette a little bit, which makes me happy. Then there's a little bump there, and I'm going to add that little bump there. A little bit of this. And then look, I'm going to put this overall shape in here like that, and then I'll put in my, you know, forces or the structure inside of it. You know, and then I can make a bigger statement with the teeth if I want. And remember, there's teeth in front, there's teeth behind. So these behind, I might make part of the interior, the silhouette of the interior of the mouth. I might make those part of that. So that why? And I put a dark against all my front teeth, right? So now I got a dark behind it, right? And that means these will pop forward a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I'm also unifying everything back here. And I could do the same thing with these teeth behind here. They can become a silhouette. Okay. And this weird, you know what makes that glow, by the way? Anybody?
Yeah.
By the way, there's this really, and then look, there's a little bunch right there.
Bacteria?
Yeah, it is bacteria. It's bioluminescent bacteria. What's really interesting about anglerfish, you can find this video online. The female anglerfish are 40 times bigger than the male. Okay. And then the female gives off some pheromone or something, so the males find them. And then you go, well, how does this little, because they did it, there's a video online showing the relationship between humans, and it's like the size of a woman, and then the guy's like this big, right? And like, how do they mate or whatever? And the male anglerfish comes up to the female, bites into her, and then her body absorbs him. So he just becomes an appendage on the female that's there to fertilize. He's just an organ fertilization machine at that point. So whenever she needs her eggs fertilized, she's got this appendage that does that. It's super weird. Okay. And I didn't realize that the males were 40 times smaller. It's just a super weird story. Gets my vote for weirdest mating behavior. Okay, does all that make sense?
Yes.
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 Yeah, go ahead. Somebody have something to say? I'm going through my notes
Have you
right here.
watched the video?
Huh?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Have you true
Now you cut out again.
facts video on anglerfish?
The what video on anglerfish?
It's really funny.
What is it?
It's about anglerfish.
Have you ever seen the that real rare footage of them?
I haven't seen that video, but I did watch this one video that I sent in the chat. I think you'll think it's funny.
I'll look at them in a minute. Hang on.
Yeah.
Ooh, they call him the Black Sea Devil. That's cool. Let's see if I can get this to work.
Fewer than half a dozen have ever been captured on film or video by deep diving
Hang
research.
on. Damn it.
This little, about 9 centimeters long, is named Alana.
Trying to. Boy, that's annoying. Hang on. There it goes.
Sea devil. It's also known as the Black Sea Devil, and it lives in the deep.
Isn't that crazy?
waters of the Grand Canyon. We believe that this is the first video footage ever made of this species alive and at depth. Anglers have a remarkable apparatus, a fishing pole with a luminous lure at the tip, which
Isn't that crazy looking?
What a pretty lady.
Yeah, so that must be a female.
Yeah. Those are the all the ones you see are females. The males are maybe like the size of a small like bagel.
A bagel.
I don't know.
It's a weird size relationship. All right, let me see. There's something else I want to go over, and I'm trying to think of it. Oh, let's see. No. So, damn it. Pages should look something like that, correct? Yeah? You guys hear me?
Yeah, I can.
You don't have to worry about gorillas.
Can you
Stick
hear
with,
us?
huh?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay. Did you also want our our reference photos, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll help me to go over them and figure them out. What else was I going to say? Okay, so you can see I'm starting to flesh them out a little more here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is just class demos from the same thing. And then the alligator here. And also give yourselves views that are simple right now. If you're not used to doing this, get the side view of the alligator, because then you've got, this simple oval there, and then the head shape, and this arm sort of coming over there. And then look at this shape. It's really just that, this back leg, and then this coming this way. That falls into our eel category again, where it's another, and then these are cool. The the alligators will have this like segmented thing that kind of comes down and then out and down and out and down and out. So it's, what is it doing? It's telling the viewer what's happening with that surface, correct? Yes?
Yes.
And then I can put these in. I can line up my little protrusions or whatever that is. You can put in a little bit of texture here and there, and boom, boom, boom. So let's look at, these are going to be on paper, but they're the same idea. If I can find it.
Wait, Are we doing this assignment on Photoshop or on paper?
Photoshop. You can do some of them on paper too. I don't care, but I prefer them in Photoshop.
Okay.
Or
Thank
you could do them in Sketchbook Pro too. That could be fine too. Because we're just doing straight drawing, so you could use either or. Let's just go through here. Hang on.
You can use Procreate too, right?
Sure. I'm not going to, okay, so normally in class I would say no Procreate, but because we're at home, you know, and all this kind of stuff, it's fine, okay? Especially for this, it's just straight drawing, okay? For the most part. Hang on, I'm trying to find this book. And of course, everything's slow as hell. Almost there.
So just to clarify, Mike, 1 page insects, 1 organic forms with texture, 1 fish, and then fourth one, what is it, like whatever? Animals?
Yeah, but keep them to animals that are fairly simple.
Okay, like birds and stuff.
Yeah, birds would be fine. I think alligators are kind of cool because they're so like repetitive, their shapes. You know, basically things that have a sort of very simple, almost mechanical quality to them. Does that make sense? Or just very simple silhouettes. I think that's a better way of saying it.
Yeah.
Very
that sounds
simple
good.
shape language, right?
And it's all going to be on 11 by 17.
Yeah. So let's look at these. These are norms.
Again? Okay, cool.
11 by 17. Okay, so look at this right here. See how he starts that bird shape? Then he just builds into the shapes. Do you guys see that?
Yeah.
I love these.
Yeah, they're great, right?
Yeah.
I was there when he made that one. But what I like about Norm's stuff is he has a lot of things in here where you can see how he built it. And they're really simple. And then look at this right here. Look how he's wrapping those overlapping forms, and then he gets a little darker line right there and starts to wrap. Look how it's literally wrapping around the form. Can you see that?
Yep.
That's a pretty effective way of doing it, right? Oops. Hang on, I gotta go a little smaller. There we go. I'm looking for all the ones that are relevant. Look at this one, this unfinished peacock down here. You see those simple shapes? Oh, this is the one I was there when he made that one. Then look at this great graphic behind it, big Sharpie. Very simple shapes. This is kind of where we're going a little bit, okay? We're starting to approach this a little more viscom, okay? Okay, look, here's another one. Look at the line work is following the ground plane. By the way, you see this thing, you guys, right here? Just whatever that thing is, the name's on it. It's some kind of 650 million years ago. Do you see that's where they got the shit for the Matrix?
Oh, yeah.
And it's almost verbatim. Okay, look at these nice highlights on this hammerhead. This is a containment line. You guys can play with this. See that containment line in white around it? It doesn't have to be white. It could be a heavy containment line. These are all, okay, and here's a really good example of that ribbon shape. He's upside down, but that's fine. Look at, there's another shadow following the ground plane, just real clean. Really clean hatching, okay? Don't do hatching all sloppy. More fish. And then you can see right here, he just wrapped a little swatch across the fish right there to get that interior shape to be a little more interesting. More fish. Look at this one. That shadow value, right? Same thing here. Nice one here. Look at that. Nice shape right here. It's a really nice shape. Really smart way of showing this alligator half underwater. There's one in here that has a really cool ground shot. I got to find it. Another ground shadow that's showing the ground plane. And then look how he only wrapped a little bit of the fur around it. He didn't go overboard. And look, gave you a big dose of that breaking the silhouette up there on that shoulder of that boar, right?
Yes.
This is really cool. Oh, that's a good one. He's showing the interior, see? Here, all these over here, that kind of thing. It's kind of simplicity is really nice. I don't know where that thing went. Yeah. Anyway, there's another one that has a really cool ground plane. I'll find it. Okay, and then, you know, this kind of thing, it falls into everything, okay? So everything's going to be about this idea of, you know, I take a round shape, cut it, ellipse is off, another ellipse, maybe this comes up, you know, and then I can, if I know how these shapes fit together, you know, you can draw a biplane. Little flag on it. And this one I'm going to see a little over here. A couple of surface details, couple of that, logo. But do you see how that's just simple shapes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's two planes and a cylinder. And that's pretty much it, really, right? You add this shape onto it. It's almost done. And it's just taking off, so it's not that far off the ground yet. Okay, questions? Let me double check my notes.
Yes.
What's that?
Will planes be part of the assignment?
No. I'm just saying everything is just simple shapes. That's all I'm saying.
Got it.
But I mean, it applies to whenever I'm drawing something out of my head or whatever, I'm usually accessing those big basic shapes, right? Now, somebody goes, if I was having a conversation with somebody and they go, hey, we want to have, I don't know, it's World War II or World War I, and there's all these biplanes, and they're flying around, and I might just knock them out and go, you mean like this? And there's clouds down here, and there's the sun, and there's that. Oh, yeah, that's cool. But then when I go to actually do it, finish it, then I'm going to kind of take a look at what did German biplanes look like at the time, and I'll add some of those details on it. But I can move them around and have them in a dogfight and do all that kind of stuff because I know how the shapes work. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay, so we're going to do, let me, hang on right now. I'm going to put it up here right now. Okay, 11 by 17. Page of insects. One page wrapped organic texture. And I'll try and find some good examples of it. What was the other one we said? Fish? And then one page, your choice.
Mike, what'd you look up to get the image of the toned paper? Like, the ones I'm finding are really textured and weird.
Hang on a sec. One page and one page, your choice. But I don't want the choice to just be, I want it to stay within the, does that make sense? I want to stay within sort of what we're doing, yes?
Yes.
So don't go and go, I'm going to draw a grizzly bear or something. I mean, I guess you could if you wrap the texture correctly. But.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so wait, one page of insects, one page of wrapped organic texture, one page of fish, and one page of choice. Okay, so there's 4 pages. Yeah? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me look at this real quick because I think this might help. I think I already have this up. All right, I guess I don't. Hang on. I'm going to do this right now. Where'd it go? Let's try this again. Yeah, that's a pain in the ass. Okay, it's uploading. Hang on. Because I'm going to upload it, and then I'll just put it up right now. That way I won't forget. Elan,
Yes, Mike.
did you guys go drawing?
This past week I was drawing at work, so I just went outside.
Well, that works. Oh, wait a minute. Wait, let me make sure this is 300 DPI paper. Almost positive it is. By the way, you guys, image size. And yes, this is 300. That's weird. Hang on. And by the way, you can res this down to 72. I would keep a 300 version, but for this project, you can, all right, that should be fine. It's weird that it says 400K though, or 400 KB. Oh no, it is. Oh, whatever. Okay, whatever it is. All right, here. Let's go back here. Back here. And I'm putting this. Actually, I leave it at 300 because it's not that big, so it's fine. And it's 10 points. It's an exercise. And then we're going to say, we're going to look at them on Thursday at
3:30.
At 1 o'clock. PM. There it is. Okay, so that assignment's up. And with the assignment, you guys, I put it under the assignment. I put a link to the download the tone paper. Yeah?
Okay, thank you.
So you guys didn't go to, weren't you guys going to go to Orange or something, Elan?
We went a couple weeks ago.
I thought you guys were going
But
last weekend. I guess I'm wrong.
we were, I think we were planning to go again this weekend. So
Okay. All right. So everybody understands what we're doing, yes?
Yep. Mr. Shihan,
Yeah.
where is the thing you just typed up? Is it on Canvas?
It's on Canvas under assignments.
Assignments.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there you are.
And you should be able to click that link and download that paper if you want that paper. You could also just do a tone background that is that color. You could also do a gray background.
Okay.
I don't care. I just want a tone background, yeah?
Cool.
Okay, everybody?
Yep.
All right, you guys. I'm going to let you guys go. And on Thursday, I want to be looking at a lot of drawings, yes?
Uh-huh.
Okay, you guys. I'll let you go.
Alright, yep.
Thank
If you have any questions, let me know. Okay?
okay, thank you,
Bye.
Mike.
Here, I got to stop my share without being told. There you go. All right, guys. I'll see you Thursday.
Okay, see you Thursday.